Well, speculation has been mounting over the future of Deputy Nationals leader Bridget McKenzie. I'm joined now by Political Editor Andrew Clennell. Andrew, what's the latest on this?
Well, we're all eagerly awaiting this report, the Prime Minister receiving this report from Phil Gaetjens, the head of Prime Minister and Cabinet. It's expected to be received on the weekend, perhaps even tomorrow, after which some discussions will have to be had with Bridget McKenzie, and I'm tipping she's gone. So we'll see. There's also, of course, advice from the Solicitor General on the legality of the sports rorts grant she handed out. There's been a real feeling around the place that situation will be okay for the Minister. It's more the Gaetjens report that she has to worry about. And as we spoke about last hour, and as I saw with your excellent interview with Keith Pitt, Tom, there's a bit of interest in the Nationals, perhaps, in Bridget McKenzie's position, as you'd expect if she has to stand down. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about the way these things are decided.
Oh, I mean, that's a decision for the leader. The leadership, the deputy leadership, is the gift of the party room. The party room giveth, the party room taketh away. And obviously, Mr McCormack is stating what his position is. He's entitled to do that. There is a process underway in terms of the review and the questions that have been raised. And once that concludes, there'll be some decisions.
Now, we know the Queenslanders sort of a one faction in the Nats, and with Northern New South Wales, Barnaby, and the Victorians and Michael McCormack in Southern New South Wales are kind of a different grouping. And so there's that natural tension there, and has been for months. It's interesting, when he's asked about McCormack backing McKenzie, and McCormack's backing was subject to the Gaetjens review, by the way, but he didn't just say, well, I agree with the leader. He said these positions, including deputy leader, are a matter for the party room. And interestingly, if Bridget McKenzie were to go on the weekend and not resign, if she had to be sacked, you could have a situation where you have a deputy leader of the Nationals who's not a minister for a week before they can replace her at a party room meeting. There's all that under consideration as well. That would be an unusual situation.
Yeah, well, one of the theories being put forward to me was maybe you could even have her stay as deputy but not have a position in the ministry, which seems strange. I mean, the issue is normally the deputy gets their choice of portfolio, so I'm not sure how that works. Does it go to almost... No, neither can I, but it almost, goes to how fragile things are, that there's a creative mindset as to how you avoid that position changing hands and everything else that comes with it.
I'd like to know who's feeding that, because that's crazy. But, I mean, look, for instance, I'd like to know if it's a McCormack supporter or someone on the other side. But all the talk that I've heard is Littleproud or Chester, more likely Littleproud. And, a few fears in the background of McCormack and co that Barnaby could somehow mount some sort of comeback. But I think that might be unlikely. But, that's the thing. I mean... That's always been... some Libs have had the view that Morrison wouldn't act because of what it would do to the Nationals, how they could tear themselves apart, and it wasn't worth it. But sometimes the scandal becomes bigger than the consequence of a personnel change, you know what I mean?
The other interesting part about this, I've seen this noted this morning, that within the ANAO report, it says the evidence available to the ANAO is that representations were received across the 3 rounds, both directly and indirectly, including through the Prime Minister's office. Now, this is not a smoking gun per se, but it's going to raise questions if she goes, well, what were these representations? For what projects? Can you tell us what they were? And then they get examined.
Yeah, and Morrison's made a point, because he's no doubt seen that line of saying we're involved in making representations. His argument would be, I wasn't involved in this process, and if Gaetjens find it was a bodgy process, that will be his defence. Well, I didn't know that she was doing it in this manner. We were just making normal representations as you do on behalf of MPs. So what it looks like to me, Tom, is, a pretty deliberate pork barrel, but you're supposed to still go through the processes properly while you're adding a few of your own, and she just threw the book out the window on that one. That's what that report appears to show. But, I mean, whether she went or whether she'd stayed, we all know that Labor's going to go for this line, the bigger scalp, in question time, and particularly with her in the Senate. They're going to go for Morrison. But, you know, he should be able to deflect it unless someone comes forward with further revelations on the Prime Minister's office's involvement. For example, some have argued that if you axe McKenzie, she might start revealing some of those things. But all the information I'm told, and, you know, I mean, who can believe what in these businesses, but is that the PM's office didn't know how kind of bad it was being administered, how far it went. I guess they saw it as your normal pork barrel grant program, not this level of maladministration.
Well, this is, when you talk about the representations, and I guess that's what we don't know right now, they can be anything from, hey, here are 3 great projects. The PM met these people and they've got terrible conditions for their toilets and they really need a revamp, or, gee, we need help in Ford. Here's a couple of things. This should swing a few votes. I mean, they're 2 very different propositions, aren't they? Yeah,
and as you know, Tom, the main thing with those sort of secondary requests is you don't put them in writing, right? But let's listen to what Peter Dutton said, because he's close to Bridget McKenzie and he was actually defending her today. He sort of preempted the review, which was unusual.
If you strip away the emotion from this debate and look at the facts, which is what we should do, I don't see the case has been made for Bridget McKenzie's removal. So
you don't think she did anything wrong?
Ministers are elected, are appointed to make decisions, and we all make decisions in our portfolios. But that's exactly what she's done. There was no funding provided to a project that wasn't recommended.
OK, so Mr Dutton uses the word recommended there, Tom, but that's not quite right. The word he should have used was eligible, because McKenzie's office asked for all eligible grants, the 2,000 in the first round, even though there were 400 recommendations. They didn't want the 400 recommendations, they wanted the 2,000 eligible, which I think the government thought would have covered them a bit, because other grant schemes have been criticised, like the Ros Kelly one, because they were actually ineligible. But a lot of these still ranked a lot lower than others on the criteria in the key seats. But he says recommended. No, they weren't recommended. That's not correct, what Mr Dutton says there. Sorry to him. Basically, the minister just made the call, not the department. They weren't recommended by anyone except the minister.
No, that's bang on. It's a very good point, because they've been sticking to the eligible line, and that is, well, it's just incorrect. Words matter. Andrew Clennell, we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thanks.